Mr. Shapiro, how are you, sir? Is he playing Call of Duty?
Oh God, wait, is that Steven Crowder? Guys, is he alive?
I'm mostly alive, barely.
Oh, okay.
Don't make him sneeze.
Wow. Well, this does come as a shock to me. I mean, frankly, I thought that it was going to be one of your co-hosts who is now the host. So,
well, I guess
I'm glad to see you. That's good.
You just put out so many hits on random Gentiles you can't keep track, and you thought I was going to be buried with those bodies.
Wow. He's just started this interview, and he's already resorted to anti-Semitic jokes. Like, I get that he's friends with Ben or whatever, but, like, at least have some kind of personality, dude. Jesus.
In a shallow grave. By the way, Ben, don't be so lazy.
I'm very clever in how I do this. I am somehow able to cave in chest walls from abroad. It's very strange.
Your mind powers.
You did it with microwaves and gave me Havana syndrome. So.
All right, that was actually based. Oh my God.
This is something that's going around right now. I won't even talk about it. No, and now I'm sick today. No doubt because of post-surgery. My immunity is probably compromised. But no COVID. It is remarkable. I have been sick 3 times throughout this whole pandemic, which is rare for me, and I still have not gotten the COVID, which...
It's rare for you to get sick 3 times over the course of 2 years. Okay, sure.
Which is bizarre.
Well, you're immortal. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only conclusion there is that he's immortal. It's definitely not that that's like a totally reasonable amount of times to catch like a cold or a sinus infection over the course of 2 years.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
It is.
Nothing can kill Steven Crowder.
Well,
nothing. They can put a rod in his chest.
Yeah, nothing can kill Steven Crowder except Sam Cedar.
he can get a really bad cold. Nothing can kill Steven Crowder.
I have 3 rods in my chest, and they're actually titanium because they were like, you're a fat son of a bitch. We can't just put steel rods in here. So I had to pay extra for 3 titanium rods, and I believe they're bulletproof, which we are going to put to the test once I get the insurance.
This is the only time that Steven Crowder has ever been humble in his entire life.
Waiver. So you do have a new book, The Authoritarian Movement.
I love that he didn't even read it right. Like, Ben Shapiro's ostensibly his friend, and he doesn't even know the name of his book. That's fucked.
Which is where is that available right now?
Yeah, that's been really, I know you've been out of circulation for a while, but that thing's been out for like 6 weeks, dude. Yeah.
Oh well, yeah. No, I have a whatever the opposite is of a Google alert. I have a Google mute for Ben Shapiro.
Oh my God, he's trying to make a joke out of it to save face, but real shit, he's a shitty friend. Or maybe they both know it's a grift, and so he won't even bother buying the book.
It's a
smart move.
Yeah.
I actually have one of those too, because honest to God, I'm really annoying. So
yeah, and then I also have one for Bing, which I don't even use, but it's just for safe measure. But then every now and then, because I have an old computer, because we don't all have Ben Shapiro money, that little son of a bitch bent back paperclip comes up and is like, do you know what Ben's up to? I'm like, ooh, paperclip.
Was that a fucking Clippy joke? Did he actually just make a Clippy joke? I'm a little bit embarrassed for him.
So let me ask you, last week Joe Biden, and we just talked about this, announced that companies with more than 100 employees have to mandate the COVID vaccine. That, I guess, so you at Daily Wire, I don't know, do you have over 100, you guys have over 100
we have like
employees?
200, yeah, we have like 200 employees, yeah.
That is amazing. Ben Shapiro has to vaccinate his fucking employees. I love it.
Okay, so what are you guys going to do?
Nope. The answer is no. The answer is that we have lawyers at the ready, and as soon as the actual regulation.
Ben Shapiro's army of lawyers ready to defy the federal government. Tyrannical Joe Biden. I love it.
Drops, then we'll have to see, what the legal analysis actually looks like in terms of how you file the lawsuit. But there's no question we are going to be filing the lawsuit because there is no constitutional authority to simply use OSHA rules to basically say to every company in the United States that you have to either get your crew vaccinated or test them every week. First of all, it's really ineffective policy. I mean, I heard you mentioning a minute.
I like how he just asserts that it's never been done before, like nothing like this is possible and it's not within like the reach of the president's power. And like without backing that up, he just kind of jumps to something else. Amazing.
The stats about natural immunity, which of course is very much true, but it also happens to be the case that if you are going to limit, if the idea here is that you have to limit exposures by people to other people, you actually want to start with small businesses, not large businesses. Right? Large businesses have a lot of space. Like our offices are actually very, very sizable.
Okay,
Small
I
business.
see what's going on.
What the fuck does that even mean? Like, you want to start with small businesses, not large businesses, because small businesses are necessarily smaller because small is in the name. That is A1. That is some A1 political commentary from Ben Shapiro.
On here. This is another example of too big to fail. The big guy, Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire, trying to cripple the office with 15 people here. It's not going to work on me, Ben.
This is actually the point, is that for Joe Biden, the goal here is to actually benefit the biggest and not the smallest.
Right.
Meaning that the mid-sized companies are the ones who are going, we're not going to do this. And it's like Amazon that's like, sure, we'll do that.
Right.
Because Amazon can afford to spend $50 per employee per week.
Right.
They can do that. We have 200 employees. Let's say half of them are not actually vaccinated. According to
this would be a good point if everybody couldn't just go get vaccinated for free. Honestly.
This new mandate, we're supposed to spend $50 per week on every one of those employees, all 100 of those people. That's $5,000 a week, which is, 20 grand a month. That's not like a tiny chunk of change. That's
right.
Over the course of a year, actually some fairly significant money. But put aside the money, on principle, we're obviously not going to do this because, number one, I'm astonished by the willingness to undermine the efficacy of the vaccine.
I love that he's willing to bankrupt his company more so than he is to tell his employees to get vaccinated. That's fucking hilarious. I hope the Daily Wire just goes under because nobody wanted to get vaccinated.
Put out by this administration. So I got vaccinated pretty much as early as it was possible to do so. As you all know, I am a huge vaccine advocate. I think the vaccine is fantastic. I think it is a miracle of science, and I think that pretty much everybody.
But go ahead.
I think that it is. I think it is fantastic. I think that everybody, pretty much, who's above the age of 20 should take it. I think if you're between the ages of 12 and 20, I think there's a good case for a 1 dose, but not 2. I think if you're below the age of 12, there's then you start to get in real dicey territory.
Yeah.
I think that you should assess your own risk. However, because I'm an adult and you're an adult, and you get to make these decisions by yourself.
Right.
In the same way that everybody gets to make those decisions there was even a case that wasn't super true before the vaccines, but now that the vaccines exist, you can take one. And once you have taken one, you are now safe. And it drives me.
Can you imagine conservatives making the case for literally any other kind of medical treatment? They're like, talk to your doctor before you do this. I won't recommend this to you, but especially a vaccine for a fucking global pandemic. It is literally unbelievable the mental gymnastics they will go through to convince themselves that they are not actively influencing people to endanger themselves and others. It is literally unbelievable.
Me up a damned wall to see that all the people who are the most worried, all the people who most want to control other people's lives, are the vaccinated. That makes no sense at all.
But it does make sense when you understand that the vaccine doesn't protect you against, for example, the Delta variant. When Mayo shows that it's only 42% effective.
Stephen, it doesn't make any sense because it does protect you against the things I care about. I don't care if I get a flu every year. I don't care. I take a flu shot anyway, but I don't care really if I get a flu. I don't care if I get a cold.
It's confirmed that Ben Shapiro gets the flu shot every year. I love that. I'm really glad that he said that. I think that's amazing.
I don't care about getting an infection from a virus that is going to take me out of work for 1 day. I care about dying and hospitalization, and the same thing for my parents, right? Sure. I care about my parents dying. I don't care about them getting a diagnosis of COVID. I care about...
That's actually a reasonable position, I think. I don't know. Good job, Ben Shapiro. You said something cool.
About them being hospitalized or getting dead from COVID. These are the things that I care about. And the truth is that when you look at the waning stats from Israel, what you see, for example, with the Pfizer vaccine, is that you're correct. The infection protection against COVID from the Pfizer vaccine went from something like 90% down to about 40%. But the hospitalization stats went from about 98% protective to about 91% effective. And the death stats went from about 99% effective to about 97% effective. So in other words, you're not going to die, and you're really not going to get hospitalized if you take the vaccine. The reason that the numbers are higher among the vaccinated in Israel is because Israel's vaccination rates are so high. So that means...
This is fucking amazing. Ben Shapiro is absolutely laying out the case for the vaccine right now. I am amazed. I think this is beautiful.
That just of the subpopulation, a huge percentage of people are vaccinated, and a very small percentage are unvaccinated, right?
But I remember a very long time ago...
Still disproportionately unvaxxed.
Right, and I remember, just to push back a little bit, I remember a long time ago when we were on the show, I said, look, the number that matters, and what you're saying now effectively is deaths per capita. I said, yes. I don't care about cases, I don't care about when we're just talking...
You know what's hilarious? I have a really vivid memory of Steven Crowder saying that you shouldn't measure police killings proportionally by races because you don't measure anything else proportionally. But here he is literally saying that you should measure fucking COVID deaths per capita. Like, he just changes whatever he believes to fit his ideology, or whatever's most convenient for his ideology at that current moment. I mean, that's totally believable because it's Steven Crowder, but like, what the fuck? 5.5 million subscribers.
Talking about hospitalizations because those numbers can be manipulated, right? Because you have hospitals that basically say, all right, we're going to admit you, look, we're short-staffed. I said the deaths per capita is a number that matters. And I remember you saying, well, that number could end up changing. And so, but I agree with you now. I think the deaths per capita are very important. And I think that is an important metric when we're dealing with the vaccination. I do think that it is alarming, however, because the change of the definition of success with the vaccination. And this is where we come into a problem with the man.
Oh yeah, it's the scientists that are moving the goalposts. Definitely not the guys that said they were going to get the vaccine once it was FDA approved, and then once it got FDA approved, decided that the FDA approval process was too quick. Unbelievable.
Mandate, right? Where it was, if you get the vaccination, you'll be protected against, you won't protected against the virus meant you won't get the virus. And then they changed it in the dead of night, saying, well, you won't get serious symptoms from the virus, which granted is good.
In the dead of night. They changed it in the dead of night. And then he has to say, which granted is good, because he doesn't want to tell people that he's like actually trying to convince them not to get the vaccine because he's a fucking snake.
My issue here right now, though, too, is this whole vaccine discussion, whether you're pro-vaccine discussion or whether people choose not to, and I understand the points that you're making. There is no treatment for people who already have COVID. And that's been politicized.
There is no treatment? There's a number of treatments. Okay. Monoclonal antibody treatment. For COVID-19 can prevent serious illness, hospitalization, and death among high-risk individuals. That is a treatment. That is the definition of a treatment. He's literally spreading misinformation. That's fucking... I hate you, Steven. I hate you.
Exist. If you have COVID right now and you go to the hospital, they say, go home, come back, and we'll toss you on a ventilator. And then
That is not what they say. Oh my god, this is fucking crazy.
Thing that people talk about is discussed as an alternative treatment, right? We heard that about ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. I'm not making any claims. What I'm saying is, hold on a second, alternative to what? It's not alternative to anything because they don't give you anything at the hospital.
There are a few things that...
Hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, that's what he's suggesting.
There are like monoclonal antibodies are pretty effective in the first couple of days that you use them.
Sure, which was dismissed as quackery last year.
It was, and then Biden suddenly was mentioning it.
Right.
So
that's crazy. Ben Shapiro is the voice of reason right now. He's telling Steven Crowder that he's wrong to push ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine on his show without any evidence. That is absolutely insane. Quackery.
The same point, but from a different angle than you, almost an opposite angle. So my point is that if you're vaccinated, so Joe Biden said two things in that speech that are in direct conflict with one another. Mm-hmm. He said, if you're vaccinated, you're safe.
Right.
And then he said, we need to protect the vaccinated from the unvaccinated.
Right.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Right.
I'm vaccinated. I literally stopped caring about whether anyone around me.
The vaccinated are safe, but they become progressively less safe as the unvaccinated continue to get infected and continue to be breeding grounds for variants. Like, I understand where he's coming from, and I understand his, like, wish to have this personal freedom, but, like, you're still going to infect other people if you get infected. You're not just a harm to yourself, you're a harm to others as well.
Was vaccinated or masked or anything the minute I got vaccinated.
Right.
I stopped caring about that literally that minute. My parents too. Right, who are like, I'm not at serious risk, so the truth is I wasn't like super concerned I was going to die anyway. I'm in fairly decent shape and I'm young, so I really wasn't that worried. Right. But my parents are 65, and so I was a little more worried about them, and I was in constant contact with them throughout the pandemic. But the minute they got the vaccine, it was Katie barred the door. I mean, we went to big events, we were going out indoors, like it was over. It was over.
All right. I mean, I guess that's a little bit irresponsible, but I understand where he's coming from. Once I got vaccinated, I became a lot more comfortable doing things outside my house as well.
For us, right? We were done. And it should be over for everyone who's had the vaccine. Joe Biden's policy is specifically designed to not accomplish that. Right. See, this is the thing that's amazing. What Joe Biden is doing is he's basically saying the reason that the economy is tanking, the reason that everything seems to be stagnating is because of the Delta variant. That's not true. The reason that everything is stagnating is because of your policy decisions. Because here's the thing. In lots of states, they have the Delta variant, heavier than they do in Delaware or in New York or in DC, the places Joe Biden likes to hang out. But
This is unbelievably untrue. The reason that people aren't leaving their houses is because there is a deadly pandemic spreading around. I would say that the Delta variant is a pretty important part of it, maybe not all of it. I mean, I'm pretty scared of just regular COVID still, even though I'm vaccinated. I think that's reasonable. But, like, to say that it's the Biden administration's policy choices, like, that's crazy. There's literally a pandemic. I think that's why people aren't going outside, Ben.
But those places are wide open, and they're not seeing their economies tank. The
Right.
top 10 best states in America for unemployment rate are all red states except for Vermont. The worst states in terms of unemployment rate are all
Vermont? Our boy Bernie's state? Fuck yes.
blue states, all of them. So what that means is that this is a policy question, and Joe Biden is trying to redirect your ire away from him for shutting your life down and making your life miserable and trying to mask your kids and toward the unvaccinated. That's all this is.
Right.
Because tomorrow, like,
He's trying to deflect blame because he's trying to mask your kids. What the fuck? Oh my god, Ben Shapiro just went off the rail.
for me, I've been saying this for a while. The pandemic is over. It's in terms of public policy. It is not over in terms of like people dying of COVID. That's the honest to God. It
Then what else is the pandemic? What does that even mean? Oh my god, the pandemic is over in terms of public policy, but not in terms of people dying. What is the pandemic then to you, Ben?
is now your choice whether you wish to get a more serious form. You're getting immunity one way or the other.
Right.
Okay, here's your choice. You can get very durable natural immunity, which is better than vaccine immunity by virtually every study.
Right.
And that comes with the risk that you get a more serious case of the disease.
Right.
Or you can get the vaccine and you will get a mild illness from COVID if you get a breakthrough case. But you're getting the immunity one way or the other. There's no third choice where you don't just get the immunity.
Right.
Okay. But what that means is that now, as a public policy matter, we have reached the end of the pandemic. Okay, there are no more things to do. And this is why what you have seen from the left is a consistent attempt to redefine.
I love that, like, he's just arbitrarily decided that public policy ends before a vaccine mandate. Like, okay, that's cool, but, like, it's still within the president's constitutional authority.
To whom is the risk? So they're having a real problem with this because originally they were saying the risk is among the unvaccinated, and so we have to do something. And then all the unvaccinated were like, yeah, we know, and we don't care, which is actually true, right? Everybody who's unvaccinated that I know, everybody I've talked to who's unvaccinated is not worried about COVID. The only people worried about COVID are the people who should not be worried about COVID.
Right.
The only people unworried about COVID are the people who maybe should be a little bit worried about COVID, right? So
Right.
it's completely messed up. And then, so what does the left decide on? What they've decided on now is the kids. What they've decided is that kids are
What they've decided on now is the kids. The left is officially going after your children.
highly vulnerable to COVID. Now, the only problem is you have to just lie. Right? In order to make that case, you just have to lie. You have to lie that there are good studies that say
And we
that
just
masking
talked about
won't take
Leanna
work.
Wen on CNN, who's a medical analyst who was the head of Planned Parenthood, and she wrote in January 2020.
All right, they're lying. How many children have died of COVID in the United States? I would say over 100 is significant, honestly. Children under 12 are particularly vulnerable to infection as they are not yet eligible for the vaccine. Oh my gosh. They make up about 15% of all documented cases? That is fucking insane. And they're making up a higher proportion over time as adults are able to get vaccinated and kids aren't. This is fucking crazy. If you're against kids wearing masks, you're literally a child murderer. Ah, yes. A dense number of COVID-19 cases in Florida and Mississippi. Just as God intended. I hate you, Ben Shapiro.
That the flu was significantly more lethal to children than COVID. We just quoted her from the Baltimore Sun. So did the CDC, and they changed that. So now they just have to lie and say this is a bigger threat than the flu to young children, according to all of the long-term data. Which, let's just play it safe. We don't have long-term data. Leanna Wen could have been wrong back then, and so could the CDC. But right now they're trying to act as though definitively it's more dangerous and it's a pandemic for young people.
Okay, and by the way, even if it were, the question matters if it were.
This is crazy. He's just decided it doesn't even infect kids just because he doesn't want it to? What the fuck?
More dangerous than the flu. Let's assume that's the case. How much more? Are we talking 10 times more? Are we talking 100 times more? Are we talking like a little bit more?
Right.
Okay, because we don't shut anything down for the flu. So they're also playing with the numbers a little bit here in the sense that the infection fatality rate, right, the number of cases versus the number of diagnosed cases versus the number of deaths for this thing, really, really low. But if you have a really high denominator, you're going to have a higher numerator, right? If you have a lot more people who are affected by COVID because of Delta, you're going to have a higher number of kids who end up in the ICU. But the grand total, according to today, because I checked the numbers this morning, the grand total number of people in the United States who have died under the age of 18 across the entire pandemic, and this is a subpopulation of 73 million people.
Careful what you're...
I agree 100%. That's the strats.
about to say, because just so you know, we were not long ago, Gerald is looking at me, one of our videos, one of our entire shows was removed from YouTube for putting the image on screen from the CDC charts of the deaths from the flu in an average year and deaths under 18, I believe, for COVID. That
is bullshit. There is no way his video got removed just for posting a chart from the CDC.
Was the reason that our whole episode got removed. So if that happens, well, you know what? We're gonna,
you can blame me for that.
We can bill you. We'll tag on to your lawsuit.
Bill me. You and Joe Biden can bill me for the.
But
for
it's
the
absurd.
problem.
But this is the big problem now too. Is you can't fight back. Look, you and I disagree here, but I don't think that anyone would argue that either of our opinions here have been medical misinformation. We've simply talked about where the line is between...
You could very easily argue that Stephen's opinion in the past 20 minutes has been medical misinformation. He said so much stuff that literally is not true, like factually incorrect, in the past 20 minutes that it would not be a stretch to label it medical misinformation.
Freedom and individual choice. Something here that I think is pretty important, you just talked about the tests, right? This policy is you mandate, right? It's a mandate. You force employees to be vaccinated or test them every week. Have you tried to find tests recently? Because I could get them 3 weeks ago. I can't get them within 50 miles of where I am today. It's not possible. And when I ask these places, when are you going to get other tests? They say, we have no idea. It's changed dramatically in the last 2 weeks.
By the way, this is also wildly ineffective policy because let's say that you test all these people once a week. Why once a week? Really, why once a week?
Yeah.
You can test negative
Why once a week?
one day, and 2 days later, you're positive. You've now spread it to the entire office. And so you tested on Friday?
Right.
Like, why? Also,
just like Greg Louganis on the diving board at the Olympics. He tested negative, and then he was having a little fun in the Olympic Village, does a backflip, hits his head, and no, there's some HIV in the pool.
I've always said that.
Yeah. Anyway, so here's my main point, and it's driving me up a wall. There is no end goal that is actually being named by any of your policymakers. Not one of them will tell you what the end goal is because there's
perhaps the end of the pandemic. These things usually last a few years. Like, do you really think this is going to be forever?